Hope we're all doing fantastic. Thank you for starting the recording. I always forget that bit, so yeah, keep me on track there. It wouldn't be the first time that I've forgotten to record something, so cheers for that, Andrew. Right, take two. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hope we're all doing well. It's Thursday evening here in the UK, and we are joined by an extra special guest today. So we have Mandy Marquardt today, who's from Team Novo Nordisk. I'm sure that all of you have probably heard of Mandy before and her kind of fantastic, successful career over the past kind of 10 plus years or so now. Certainly someone who I've kind of followed on social media and followed the career of. So, Mandy, first of all, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me, and I'm excited to see everyone and meet everyone. So thanks for being here.
No, it's great. Thanks for giving up the time. I really appreciate you giving the time for us. So, I think kind of a bit of an icebreaker. Something that we usually do is we usually start with kind of the most obvious question, which is your kind of diagnosis story. So, I wonder if you could just run us through your diagnosis story and what sort of age you were and when that kind of came in your life at first.
Yeah, I was diagnosed at 16 years old, so quite some time ago. And that happened when I was in Germany. I was there living with my father at the time. He's German, and I wanted to move there and race and be competitive there. And so I raced a bit with the state team because Germany, you have state teams and then you compete at nationals. And so I went to some routine blood work and testing. So we have the VO2 max testing, and they just do all the blood work and everything. And then right after my VO2 max test, the doctors there had told me my blood sugars were elevated and pretty high. I had no idea what that meant. I was just hoping everything would go back to normal, but I also didn't have like the best breakfast that morning. Granted, I was 16. I had probably a pretzel and a yogurt, a German pretzel. And yeah, that probably wasn't the greatest breakfast. So I was probably like, oh man, they could probably see that I didn't really eat too well today. And that wasn't it. Soon later I found out because then my father came to pick me up and then we went right to the hospital. And in Germany, I was actually in the hospital for 2 weeks because they did all of the routine blood work and just more blood work and more testing to see all of my organs and how they were functioning, which I thought, kind of looking back, like, wow, that was actually really good. Just experience, because it wasn't just in and out of the hospital, which is kind of what is happening more so today. But then I got to meet with nutritionists and doctors, and a lot of them were really helpful. But there was one doctor that was just overseeing me almost the whole time, and he had just told me that I would never be able to compete at a high level in my sport. And it was pretty devastating because at 16 I was like, well, this is just the beginning. So that was really hard for me.
Yeah, I think that's the first time I've ever heard of someone being diagnosed as kind of part of a sporting event or as kind of routine blood work for something in their kind of athletic careers. Were you feeling like unwell at the time, or were there any other signs or symptoms that kind of you should in hindsight you were aware of, or?
Kind of looking back at it and just talking to my parents, and something kind of we still talk about today sometimes, just when I was 14, I actually was really I got the flu, or I got really sick, and then I ended up going to the hospital. My blood sugar was pretty high. But they said when she feels better, maybe bring her back. But yeah, no doctor ever followed up or anything. Okay, my mom also was like, oh, I don't think, my daughter has diabetes. She's an athlete and she's healthy, right? So yeah, I think at 14 it was kind of around puberty that it happened. And then I was probably living with it for a couple of years, not knowing, but I was so active, and my mom cooked really well, so I ate really well. But looking back at it, sometimes it would just like take me forever to like warm up or feel like I was ready, just like mentally, or sometimes I just couldn't focus in school, and that was really hard. So yeah, if I look back at it, there are definitely some
I would
some
have loved
instances.
to have put a continuous glucose monitor on you for that 2 year period and just see kind of how much your activity level was having an impact, or kind of how high was your blood glucose during that period of 2 years. I mean,
Pretty scary, probably.
yeah, I mean, people do have really long honeymoon periods, but that's a pretty impressive one to kind of be going on relatively symptom free and still live an active and, well, presumably a very active life between kind of that 14 to 16. kind of age until you were diagnosed.
Yeah, I've never actually really talked about it so much, but since we're all type 1, I supposedly have MODY, which is type 3.
Oh,
And so
interesting.
it's interesting. So my pancreas makes insulin. Some beta cells are there operating, but the receptor of like, hey, your insulin needs to be let out is just completely shot.
Ah,
So
interesting.
it's kind of weird. I'm like looking for maybe an AI chip that could be inserted, and then it could tell my pancreas to basically just let
Yeah,
out insulin.
as if we all need to be made more bionic with all the wearables that we already have at the moment. But uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
just doesn't work. So
I mean, and at the rate that technology is advancing, I think back, we're now 101 years since the discovery of insulin, and I kind of think about how far things have come in the last 100 years. So it kind of wouldn't surprise me as if in 100 years' time, we were all living with artificial pancreases inside of us, in the same way that you have a pacemaker or something like that. So I think that's
yeah,
probably on the cards.
yeah, I hope to be here in this lifetime to experience it. But
Yeah.
if not, it's okay. I have all the resources, I feel like, and um this is just the life that I've known now to this point. So um yeah.
Just I'm going to circle back around to kind of this point in diagnosis, but I wonder if we could just rewind a few years, and probably back about 6 or 7 years for you now in terms of your kind of journey into cycling and why cycling, or what other sports were you doing, and kind of at what age that was.
So I am originally from Germany. I moved to Florida and I was about 6 years old. And my father's German and my mom's American. And so when we moved to Florida, it was just the thing is to be active and be outdoors. And so I was swimming and running with my father before school and just really active. And I was playing tennis. It's actually really what I wanted to do was be a professional tennis player. But, like when you're a kid, you have dreams. But yeah, it just kind of shifted direction. I had an injury. So um I just, yeah, I wanted to try a triathlon. And my dad was like, let's see where there's a velodrome. And then I went, there's a velodrome 20 minutes away. So it was just a safe place at 11 years old for me to learn how to really competitively ride. And a track bike is what I tried first before a road bike. And I fell in love with it. And road riding was fun. Because I got to go on group rides and my dad would follow us with the car behind the group rides, which was really cool. And I loved how interactive the community already was. And I didn't see as many young people involved in the sport, but I always kind of gravitated to people who were older just because, yeah, they were just really encouraging. And I loved it and I stuck with it. And I went to nationals that following year and I did really well. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like,
Oh, sorry, I need to just stop and pause for a second, because that's a quick succession from going to kind of playing different sports to picking up a new sport to you and going to nationals in essentially a year.
yeah.
That's an insane kind of progression curve. I think that if you just plot that on a graph, it's kind of 0 to 100. So that's really impressive. So you must have showed a lot of kind of potential from almost day one.
Yeah, my coach would say like you're always in the big chain ring. So like it's still a problem. Well, now the gears are bigger, so I'm a sprinter now. Back then I was an endurance rider. But yeah, it's kind of fit. Like the big chain ring is how I lost a photo finish road race when I was in my 10-12 nationals. It was literally like a photo finish and I was in my big chain ring. So yeah, he'll never let that go. I have contact with my first coach today and I just think it's funny. But
Haunts you
yeah,
to this day.
yeah, actually, when I went to Germany, before I went to Germany, I went to nationals again. There's a time period where I didn't do nationals after that because I was like, oh, I want to do triathlons, and my parents didn't pressure me to do nationals. And so I was just doing triathlons, and then I was like, yeah, I'll do the 15, 16 track and road nationals one year, and that was like a year where I was like ready to like medal. And then I remember being at the camp before, and I was like on target and then at the race, I just felt so tired. And I don't know, I was being questioned of like, do I even want to be here? And I'm like, yes, I do. So it's just, yeah, there's a lot of questions that were answered basically when my diagnosis happened. But
Okay.
yeah, it wasn't always easy because it's like, I want to do this, but like, why isn't my body really allowing me?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's interesting, and kind of I think people put barriers on themselves all the time, but in this scenario, it's like the opposite way around of that. Kind of going, there was a physical barrier. You didn't yet have a type 1 diagnosis, there was a physical barrier there because you weren't having the treatment for it. But I'm intrigued at that point there, kind of going, you had between the ages of, so we were saying diagnosed at not diagnosed, sorry, started cycling at 10 or 11, were we
Yeah.
saying? And then kind of diagnosed at 16. But what was life like in terms of your training volume and stuff in that period, and what happened around 16 in terms of that adjustment, as well with diabetes?
Yeah, that time period in between, I was just really active. I was track and field in school, cross country. My mom really enjoyed Pilates, so I'd go with her. Sometimes I would even run to Pilates and then run back, or I'd run before school. Like I was actually really active all the time. And thankfully, like just I had good nutrition from my mom, just she cooked really well. And yeah, I just think like that balance of having activities really early on just really helped like me be in this routine. It wasn't until like maybe when I got a little older. Obviously, I think it kickstarted when I went through puberty. And then I found things to be a little more challenging or difficult. Or when I'd run cross country, I'd remember just being really lethargic after a long day of school. But I'm like, maybe I didn't eat enough. I mean, probably that too. But yeah, it was just like a mix of things. So a lot of questions were answered then at my diagnosis when I moved to Germany. But yeah, it was like I made the state team and I was supposed to um I had a national team training camp in Germany, and then I was supposed to do junior worlds that following year, and then just kind of was set back when I had the diagnosis in November of 2008 or 7. Sometimes that's all a blur to me. I should know.
I hear that. You lose track of years, don't you? And you get asked so many times, oh, how long has it been? How many years? I can't even remember how old I am, let alone how long I've had type 1. So I totally get that.
Well, this year I've had type 1 as long as I didn't have diabetes. So I was diagnosed at 16 and I'm 32 now. So I've had basically a life with and without the same kind of time period.
I feel like that's some sort of milestone to the point at which you overcome that. I feel like maybe now you can officially call yourself a diabetic, or someone that lives with diabetes at that point.
Yeah. I was just in Germany visiting my dad and I like rode by the hospital with him and I was just like, wow, this is where it all kind of started.
Yeah, well, to be fair, you wouldn't have been part of Team Novo Nordisk and on this journey without it. So I'm a
Right.
firm believer in every cloud has a silver lining, and that sliding doors moment of where would you have been without it? And maybe I don't know. I think type 1 diabetes brings with it a lot of structure, a lot of routine, and kind of things that maybe go hand in hand with training and and kind of that routine, that regime.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. I moved back to Germany in 2009. That I remember, because then I came across, which was Team Type 1 at the time, but now we're Team Novo Nordisk. So I found them in 2010, and I was doing a lot of criteriums and just trying to find my way back to like cycling and diabetes and trying to figure all that out because when you enter a criterium, you get so nervous and then your blood sugar just goes really high. And I just had struggled with that, like with exercise. I mean, not just like a road ride, but like when there was like exertion and adrenaline and nerves. So that was a really hard time to like figure out. But there are other athletes with type 1. And then the coach at the time was wearing a Dexcom and she was like really helpful too. She rode for T-Mobile like back in the day, and she knew how to navigate like really difficult situations, and she was just like a really good leader. Her husband was the director of our road team at the time, so yeah, it was just a really good experience, and I didn't know at that point, like even thinking if I didn't have diabetes, like how I'd navigate like going into like being a professional cyclist, like that's even hard in itself. But just having the opportunities to do like USA crits and do nationals and having a team was just really encouraging and really difficult at the same time because I was just trying to navigate diabetes.
So we've skipped a few years in your life here, I feel. So diagnosed at 16. At what point was this then that kind of you got involved with Team Novo Nordisk, and what was the kind of path from 16 to that point?
So after my diagnosis, I stayed in Germany. I know like it's just like sometimes like this blur, but I stayed in Germany and I was like,
I'm not going to quiz you on it later. I'm not gonna
no,
like
it's
fact check
okay.
these. Don't worry.
It's I need like a map sometimes,
Yeah,
but or
timeline.
like just a chart. And so I competed at the German nationals before my diagnosis. It was 2007. Yes. And it was where I placed bronze in one of the events. And then I was diagnosed in November, so a few months later. And then I was like, okay, I told my dad, like, I just want to get back on the bike and have fun. But also, one of my goals was like, I want to do the German nationals and just see where I'm at. And I remember doing some events beforehand and with the state team, and I neglected to take my insulin. And then I realized that was a really bad idea. My father wasn't really angry, but yeah, it was just a really difficult time. And I didn't want to take insulin because I just thought it would just go away. But obviously it doesn't work that way. But the goal was nationals that following year. And literally like 7 months, 8 months later, I competed at nationals. I was bronze in the same event. So that was like really cool.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
yeah, that's. I mean, you're really showing there that kind of living with type 1 really doesn't have to hold you back there.
Yeah.
Um,
Mentally it did. Physically it didn't. It was only 500 meters, but it's a sprint event, but it's still hard. It's all out. It's
Only 500 meters, flat out effort, no, virtually anaerobic. Yeah,
yeah. But that's kind of what I do now I'm away from endurance. I'm primarily a sprinter, and the team has been really supportive of my path of transitioning to sprint just because my anatomy and just physically like I am more of like a power athlete, so just the sprint was something I gravitated towards. You guys have amazing sprinters, Chris Hoy, Victoria Pendleton, they're all legends, and you guys all know them, which is amazing because if you ask it, who somebody is here in the United States, they wouldn't know. So,
well,
but
I'm from a town just next to a town called Otley, and it's like cycling pedigree in the UK. So we have a lot of predominantly road athletes where I'm from. But yes, we get a lot of the road stars are kind of from the Leeds area in the UK. So I think it's because it's so lumpy around here, and maybe I should have been a track athlete. It might have made my life a little bit easier. A few less hills.
yeah, and the weather, right? You don't have to worry about that. It's all indoors.
Yeah, it's snowing here at the moment. So yeah, definitely a bit of a change from kind of Florida weather or
Yeah, I wish we did have more indoor velodromes. The only one that we have is in California, and that's primarily where I train. So I'm based in Pennsylvania. That's
yeah.
home. But I travel a lot. I've traveled a lot this year. I've probably only spent like say 2 months total at home now. So this is like probably going to be the longest period I'm home now, which is like
I was about to say
over a
I was
month.
quickly looking at a map then because I was going that's certainly not commutable. What does that journey? Are you flying then back and forth
Yeah,
or
5 hours. But like I was here in September. So after Worlds, I went to Copenhagen to visit Novo Nordisk. That was a really cool experience. Got to tour the Novo Nordisk headquarters. And yeah, just experience and see other people who've been part of my journey. So that was amazing. And I got to ride the Argon 18 bike around, and I
the
loved it.
Sun Pro or the track bike?
Just a road bike. I went right after Worlds,
Okay.
and it was a little bit of downtime. So yeah, a little bit of downtime. And yeah, then I went home, and then I basically went to LA, then I went to Chile for the Pan American Games, then I went to Germany, and now I'm home. And then I'm gonna go back to LA.
That
So
sounds
it's
like a lot of traveling and also a lot of time differences um,
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
What have you got a time difference as well with traveling from Pennsylvania to California? You've got an hour there.
I find that actually kind of hard. The 3 hours like definitely is
Three.
pretty rough. Yeah, I mean there's 3 hour time difference. I mean, I that I know of, like every time zone change, so 3 hours takes 3 days. So maybe add
Okay.
a no fourth one because my blood sugars, but Yeah, I think I've got it somewhat down. There's always a bit of a struggle. But it's not always perfect, right? Even though I'm doing what I love, but yeah, it's always a learning curve.
And I think with type 1 diabetes, there's always a spanner that gets thrown in the works. So you can do everything right, just like you did last time, and the results can be totally different. So I think that kind of there's a degree of resilience that I think you need to be able to kind of overcome that, and kind of mental resilience.
Yeah, if my bag's overweight, I can just blame it on all my diabetes supplies, which I have. So
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in use the advantages of living with type 1 where you can. I always remember when I was
yeah,
younger, I used to dive off for like biscuits from the staff room at school. I just used to blame it on having low blood glucose. Someone would just be like, "Yeah, I need a few biscuits," and it was just because I wanted to take the opportunity whilst I could because other people couldn't. And I was like, let's use the advantages where I can. Or theme parks. I'm not sure they do it so much anymore, but theme parks you used to be able to kind of tell them that you were recently diagnosed with type 1 and then get a queue pass to skip all the queues.
what? I have to try that. I
Yeah,
always
absolutely.
like take snacks in. They're like, you can't bring that in. I'm like, well, I have to. So, but
Yeah.
I'd be happy to hear like from I know when we have the Q&A, or if you want to type it in, kind of your experiences. Just if there's anything that you've had that's been a bit of an advantage of having type 1. I'm always up for a good laugh. But the parking spot one, I don't know about that one.
Parking spot.
I
No,
was
I
joking.
meant
I was
the.
joking. I'll try it. I was
Oh, right.
joking.
What was that in the chat? I missed that one. I was
That's
like,
me.
parking spot, I think.
That'd be
Um, I'm sorry.
The
I was
same
just trying to
tattoo.
catch up on. Yeah, yeah.
Which one's that? This one on my arm? Oh yeah, yeah. Cool. That's kind of like a follow your heart, the arrows. But people always think it's like part of the military, and I'm like, no.
I like that
Very
one.
cool.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so just going briefly back to your career then. So 1 year into kind of diagnosis, you've already bronze, so your first medal.
Yeah,
With
yeah. I
that
was
one.
junior. I was
Yeah.
still a junior then.
Okay. And then I think you have 37 medals now to your name, I think.
Oh no, that's a lot. It's 27, but it's that's
27, sorry.
still a lot. But yeah, no, but I'm a little older, so I've been part of the sport. Well, I say only not like that, but he's but
If
yeah,
you're old, you're making me feel old because I'm older than you. So so we're still young. We're definitely still young.
I count the elite ones. I think like junior and collegiate's cool, but I count the elite titles. I think I don't know, to me, like on an athlete level, not diabetes, like I think having elite national titles just it just feels more valuable a bit. I
Well,
don't
I think never mind just the titles, but you still hold a number of records to your name, don't you?
Yeah, and that's with diabetes, and that's pretty cool. So
What
yeah,
what records do you mind just explain to people kind of what records you're because I think these are pretty impressive, but which records you're currently still the holder of?
yeah, so I did the standing kilo national record. I did it here on the outdoor track. I'd love to do it on the indoor track someday. It was 108 here. But the world record's 106, and I've been like eyeing to do that for like a couple of years now, but the timing just hasn't just worked out. But I'd love to do that. Yeah, that's definitely in the grasp. But yeah, so I have the standing kilo national record, the 500 national record, which I broke my own one. I had it in 2016, then I broke it this year, which the 500 is just one of those events, just because that's kind of where it all started for me. So that's one that I absolutely love. And I have the team sprint national record that we just set at the Pan American Games with my two teams.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And that was really exciting. We're just, we're you could say new upcoming team just because the sprint program has gotten a new coach and more funding. So before it was just me and another athlete, and that was really challenging. But now
Mhm.
we actually have a program and we have funding and resources, and what do you know, like there's an actual team and there's results happening, and it's really incredible to have that support from USA Cycling and finally just see the program pick up. Kind of sad that it's towards the end of my career, but it's still here and I'm really excited about that. And then I also have the team sprint national record with a former athlete. So when it was 2 athlete, and now it's three, a 3-person team, which is equivalent to what the men ride. So it's three riders.
Yeah.
So and I am the third wheel technically.
Okay.
in that. The oldest.
I don't think you should
half
say
the
that. Like that
longest.
makes you sound like you're the plus one. Like
Pretty much. No, but it's really cool too.
Most important because you got to make sure you get across the line for the time. So
yeah, it's the first rider. So it's like a relay, right? Like the first rider does a lap, then pulls off, or the second rider comes through, but it's very technical. So there's a lot of time in training closer to competition. We work on technical execution, and it's all about timing too for the second rider, timing that rush. I like position 2. But as far as like the team goes, like me and P3 just like works out the best way for everybody, and just as a team, like that's the best time.
is that because of you mentioned kind of your heritage of kind of transitioning towards sprint and kind of becoming more sprint focused? Is that because you've got a bit more of a background of having some endurance and some road riding back in the day that kind of carries you through on that as that third rider? Or
I think so. Yeah, I really think it's helpful. Like I really enjoy the capacity work that goes with that. Like I'd rather do 500s than like starts. Like I am an explosive athlete, but in a sense like I prefer like the longer in the sprint tournament, like the drag races.
I
And
guess
that's
as well, if you're used to turning a big gear, then it takes a little bit of time to churn that up. So if you're this sort of rider that likes to ride a bigger gear ratio, then that's going to take a little bit of time to kind of get spinning and get moving.
correct. Yeah. So I definitely have always preferred the bigger gears, and it's definitely a benefit now. But it's also good to have some leg speed and leg work. Not my favorite kind of workouts, but I do them. And but there's all different types of sprinters. They're tall, short, like some have big legs, some are smaller. Like there's all different types of sprinters, right? So, but it's always like when you're training all different. I'm spending time in the gym, and then on the bike work I do capacity, and then I do starts, and then I do excels. Like there's always, it's dynamic, which I really like about sprinting.
So
Yeah.
you're coming up to 10 years now, I think, with the USA team. I think for the as being part of the World Cup team there,
Yeah.
and coming up to 6 years now with being part of the World Championships team. I'm just intrigued to know kind of over that period, what are the highs, the lows of your career, pardon the puns, but kind of what are your standout moments over the past 10 years?
So I will say that I started sprinting in 2012, 2013, here in Trexlertown, Pennsylvania, where a lot of international athletes would come to race. So it's really great exposure on the international level. And then I graduated college in 2014. So then I was like, oh, I went to Colorado Springs. We didn't really have a program then, but it was kind of Colorado Springs. And there were a few athletes. And then they were just like a month before, they're like, do you want to go to the World Cup in Guadalajara? And I was like, sure. And here I was going like against Anna Mears and all these big names. And I honestly had no idea what I was doing, probably for quite some time, just because there was no program, there was no depth. So yeah, from like 2014 to 2017 is kind of where I was building and learning. And like I was coming from an endurance background, so it's taking time to like build strength and build like the skills and the tactics. We only have one velodrome here, so you have to travel to go to races. And yeah, and training on a 333 like I do here versus a 250, like the transition's always been different. Like, so I would say it's not until like maybe 2018, 2019 where my career actually started to pick up, and I was like, oh, this is how it all works, and this is how I'm able to train and manage my diabetes and travel, and like where am I going to train, and when am I going to compete? There's like periodization, about there's only so many chances in track sprint cycling that you do get. So yeah.
And what, I'm just thinking about that period, but kind of at what point did you turn professional, and what was life like in terms of you funding that lifestyle and things before that, if you don't mind me asking?
Funding before that, I'd say it was my parents. Like they're very supportive. I mean, my dad grew up racing go-karts and wanted to do Formula One, but had a really bad accident in Formula Two or Three back in when he was younger, and then his mom passed away. So then he had to take over the business, right? So the family business in Germany. So he never got to follow his dream. And so both my parents have created this opportunity for me to allow to do what I wanted to do. And I obviously never want to let them down or ever take advantage of that ability to have that lifestyle. And I was just really grateful when I moved from Florida, back from Germany to Florida, then Pennsylvania for college, and had the opportunity to race here at the velodrome and just get better and get experience. But I'm really thankful that they were able to make that possible. And then it wasn't until maybe 2018 or 19 where I started to kind of get those. So in 2016 at Pan Am's, I was starting to get results and some national records, and then kind of figuring out, okay, how do I approach sponsorships? And then Phil on the team and Team Nova Norris had allowed me to have my own sponsors, which was really neat because then I can kind of branch out a little bit because I was primarily just on the track. So then I was able to get some of my own sponsors, and my godfather kind of came on board with developments. And that's America's First Sugar-Free Mint, which is really cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was just kind of a collective effort, and then I was like, maybe I need to advocate for myself, and I pushed for a salary, and I was like, okay, like this is legitimate, like now this is like a job, and then just kind of expanding from there. Just like my place in the sport, like I know like I need some additional help and resources. Like I'm at this point now, and like I don't always ask for help from my parents financially, so yeah. Yeah, it's
Oh.
not easy, but it's
Well, you mentioned there kind of, it being a job. And I just wonder if you can kind of touch on, so, in an average week, how many kind of hours you're doing on the bike, how many hours you're doing, outside on the road, on the track, on the stationary bike inside, you mentioned the watt bike. So kind of like, what do those volumes look like? And then how much are you spending in the gym, how much recovery, etc.
Yeah, so I can just speak right now currently. So I'm 4 days a week in the gym right now. So I actually am in a transition phase with my training and coaching. And so I'm kind of more now with the national team and kind of on their program. I have I've had a really great coach here who's identified my potential. But I need to take that next step in my career and with the national team and just kind of be aligned with everybody else. So I'm on a different program now. So I'm with the national team and from on the bike and in the gym. So yeah, it's been a bit of a transition period, but yeah, I'm 4 days a week in the gym, which I really like. It's fun, it's dynamic. There we have speed days, we have strength days, we train out with a VBT. So like squats aren't just always heavy. It's like how fast can you move the weight is really important.
Okay.
There's also a core in this program and upper body, but and then I'm on the watt bike in the afternoon. So it's literally like I have doubles right now, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
One
And
of our members will be really happy about you being on the Watt Bike because they're the developers of the Watt Bike app. So
oh,
yeah, that's I'm not sure if Adam's on the call, but yeah, works for a company called Apadme that do a lot of work with Watt Bike. So he'll
it'd
be
be
pleased.
cool to integrate glucose data.
Speak to him. He would love to do stuff like that. So
Yes.
if they've got an in, if you want to be involved in that, we can definitely make that happen. That would be really cool.
Yeah, I think power and training data with glucose data, the more the better. I mean, I know they do that on the endurance side, but it'd be interesting to see on the sprint side.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but so I mean, I guess you could say in LA though, I'm also training twice a day. To give you an idea, I leave around 6:30, 7 a.m. to the gym, and I'm there until about 9:30, 10, and then I go to the track to have lunch. And then I'm on the bike by 12:30, 1 o'clock, and then session's over at like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I cool down. I'm home by like 5 or 6 and make dinner, and it's all over again the same day. And those are really long days because I don't get to go home like I do here.
So what about the nutrition to kind of support that? Because that sounds like a lot of time training. So I'm assuming there's a fair bit of prep work or kind of meal work
Yes.
around those.
Yeah, a lot of meal prepping, a lot of I don't know if you guys know Costco, so everything is kind of in bulk.
Love
So
Costco.
yeah, it's literally like so my husband.
Give her a couple of minutes, see if it comes back.
We have a grill and we make enough, and then yeah, we just make sure we just are set. It's just a lot of logistics sometimes after like on Tuesday, because Wednesday is an easy day. We have to go to Costco on Tuesday night after like a long couple of days already. And I'm like, this is the last thing I want to do is go to Costco.
Yeah.
But when else? I mean, you could go Wednesday, but that's my recovery day. So you're
You
always
guys
just
not have Costco delivery yet?
no, because we get like 3 bags of ice because on Wednesdays we will do ice baths.
Ah, okay.
So like we're just always just yeah, just teamwork. And it's just a lot. But then come Thursday, Friday, we're going to Costco maybe again on Friday to get more ice. And then Saturday we have a road ride. It's just yeah. Sometimes I'm like, I don't even know how we do it, but we do it.
It sounds like a very busy but kind of structured routine to the week, I think.
Yeah, it'd be different. Like I think other countries, like they have the training center, they have the ice bath recovery setups, like they have like nutrition, everything right there, right? So, but it's kind of like here, yeah, we have the track and the bikes, but we have to do a lot of it
Yeah,
ourselves.
yeah. And do you think that, with the new, you talked about the new kind of funding into the kind of program, do you think those sorts of things will change over the next couple of years?
Yeah, yeah, they're definitely wanting to create like more housing opportunities. I mean, LA is obviously not the cheapest place to live and have resources, but it's where our only indoor velodrome is. And so a lot of the athletes there do live there already. And we're actually with a host family, which we're really fortunate. Like I shipped out my old car like 5 years ago. Somehow it's all worked out and it still runs. So yeah, it's a lot of it kind of just like you've done it on your own, but
Yeah.
that's right. The diabetes lifestyle, it's like you find a way or make a way kind of mentality. And
Uh,
so
sorry, you say you lived with a host family.
yeah.
I'm so intrigued about this bit. So you live with a host family. Are they involved in the program, or like where are they? How have they come into it?
I say host family, but her name is I can say her name. She's okay with this, but her name's Mary Lou and she's 83, but she's so fit and upbeat and like has grandkids and they come over all the time. But she's housed some tennis players before when I met her through a massage therapist that she's housed other athletes. And so yeah, it's worked out and it's kind of become like family because we've spent the holidays there
Oh,
before. She was kind of
like a
sad
home
that
from
we're not
home.
there this Christmas.
Oh,
So yeah.
that's really nice.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been an awesome experience. We're so thankful. And like they've come to nationals and sometimes training practices and they've yeah, just learned about the sport. So she has grandkids that are also like very active, some water polo and swimming. So it's neat.
Hmm. Okay. So I said before the call that I wasn't going to do a quick fire question and that I wasn't going to throw you under the bus. But I am going to throw you under the bus now just for a brief second. But I'm just intrigued. What is your go-to hypo treatment?
Mm, that's my opportunity to have Haribo candy, the German candy.
Okay, well that's pretty much the same here, I think. Or yeah, in the UK, most of the diabetic specialist nurses kind of advise three jelly babies, but
I've heard
that's
about those.
yeah. Well, I think three is one of those things where no one actually has three, or that's my experience anyway. That 10 later, I'm not very
You
disciplined in
get
my
so
hypo.
hungry, right?
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
don't know when I'm low, I'm like, oh my God, I just want to eat more. But I'm also kind of not excited when I'm low, but I'm like, oh, it's an opportunity to have candy.
Yeah, it almost feels like a cheat day.
Yeah, like I get excited and then I'm like, oh God, I ate too much.
Well,
Look,
you can
speaking
add
of that,
that to
I'm
the list
looking at my blood sugars now.
of kind of silver linings. Um,
Yeah.
no,
Except when you have, too much and you're like, oh man, now I don't feel so good. But yeah.
well, yeah.
But with all the training that I am doing, there's some days that I don't really have to take any fast acting insulin. And I was in Germany just recently and had some time off, and I found it really difficult. I was the only time I felt like I was like my diabetes was great was when I was sleeping. I was like, I don't know how to do this without being an athlete. Like this is actually going to be really hard someday.
I think that adjustment's really hard, kind of on going from training blocks to time off and things, and the way that diabetes management is so intrinsically linked with kind of what you're doing, how much physical activity, what you're eating, what your diet is, how hydrated you are, like all those factors that you have to think about with training makes such a difference to diabetes management. So when you do take some time off, have a week off, or even if you're unwell, so get forced to take some time off through injury or something like that, suddenly
Yeah.
everything goes out the window, and you feel like you're back at square one a little bit.
Speaking of hydration, I have my water right here.
Is that a team branded bottle as well with the team
It's
logo?
my branded bottle.
Nice. Yeah, I think
It's
I see the US cycling track
oh yeah, that's all.
on the side as well. Yeah.
I try not to overpower it with too many stickers, but yeah, this one's my logo. So it's MM and
Nice.
it's blue, right? Because that's the World Diabetes logo. It's blue, and blue is my favorite color. But it's also meaning because we're greater than our highs and lows. But this is
Oh
sometimes
yeah.
how my Dex CGM graph looks.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah. I'm feeling that right now. 100%. You mentioned pressure and stress earlier, and we've done one of these every week for a year now, and still right at the start, my blood sugars decided to jump sky high, just with the nerves of jumping on the call and not
yeah.
talking upwards. But
Yeah, it's just like kind of racing sometimes. It's like it's always like you gotta like back when I haven't raced for a bit, it's always like learning how to control my nerves again.
And
Um
yeah, there's loads of things as well on kind of the start line as well. If you experience an unexpected delay because of some sort of, if there's a crash in the race before you, suddenly it might be 20 minutes before you're on the start line or something like that.
oh
Uh,
yeah, I've experienced those just recently at Pan Am's. But I have this like really cool thing I got at Pan Am's where you trade pins. Never got to do that before, so that was
oh
cool. So
wow, that was
I
cool.
bring some show and tell items because those are fun.
Uh,
But yeah, there's like pins from all the different countries. Like this one I think is my favorite from the Bahamas because it's
were
really big.
you prepped and had to bring your own pins, or did you have to
No,
like
we
frantically
got
try
all
and
of our
find some?
clothing.
Ah,
So
okay.
yeah, like when I've traveled with the USA Cycling, so the last 10 years, I've never went to the Pan American Games, because in 2019 it was too close to the Pan American Championships, which was an Olympic qualification race, one of the Olympic qualification races, and so we kind of give our spots to like some of the endurance, so we didn't go. But Pan Am Games was my first experience, and yeah, no, my husband actually got more pins because he said he lost his. Um, no, but they were really nice to like get so yeah, to give us more pins just because there's some other countries that we wanted. Like 10 pins aren't enough because you want to like give some away to
Yeah, and
like
then like trying to
family.
trade, going, I don't want this country's badge, so I'll swap you for your country because your country is a better badge. Or like, yeah,
Yeah, because you look at people's and you're like, oh, sometimes it's like if you have a lot of them, like you just want to put them away because everybody's just bothering you.
I'd
But
grab them.
yeah, it was a cool experience, being in the village with all the other countries of the South American countries.
So I could go on for hours and hours, but I want to open this up to. I'm mindful of the fact that there's kind of a load of people in the chat here. So I want to open the floor up to anyone who's got any other questions and maybe wants to either pop them in the chat or please feel free to unmute yourself if you've got any questions for Mandy.
I've got a question, Mandy. Firstly, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. So I'm just interested to know now, with your sort of experience, do you still suffer with like pre-race nerves, or have you got that under control now? Like in terms of like your blood, like does your blood sugar still spike, etc.?
I would say not like right before the race, but when I come back in from like an event. So I've had to kind of fine tune some things before I go out and ride or do my race. So I worked with my endocrinologist. I remember at Pan Am Games, like texting him and being like, this is really aggravating. Like, what can I do? So he kind of gave me some little cues and things to try. Could be kind of risky, but it worked out. So then I came back in, my blood sugars were a lot better, and I like made sure to cool down in between rides, because I'm like, then I have my next sprint tournament like with that person. If it's like quarterfinals and semifinals and finals, like they're best of three, like it's within 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes, I'm racing again. So I'm like, I have to be recovered.
Okay. All right, cool. Thanks for that. Just another question. Do you sort of do anything to work on your mindset? Be interested to know if you do anything sort of around your mindset.
Yeah, I do work with a sports psychologist. So just having that space to kind of talk about things that scare me, or that I'm working through, just someone to help me navigate through things. And I do think in a lot of ways, like diabetes like has helped me kind of figure out like to just take things how it goes, just go with it kind of mentality sometimes. Um yeah, and like I do find, like, of course things can be really challenging, but I'm like, well, I've done this, so I can do that. But yeah, there's always those good days, right? And then those days where like you can just like, all right, I'm gonna get through it.
Definitely. Awesome. Cheers. Appreciate it.
Amazing. Anybody else? I'm expecting Andrew Big to have usually comes with like a list of about 10 questions.
Yeah, I mean, you covered a couple of questions that I'd written down here, AK, so my list is slightly shorter than it normally is. But just firstly, just going back to your mixture of doing gym work and then bike work as well, do you find there's much difference in the way you have to manage your diabetes around those sort of completely different activities?
Yeah, I noticed the gym, I tend to go a lot lower after like mid workout, or like you just like strength training really just brings down my blood sugar. And I have a good breakfast, and I take long acting insulin. There's days that I don't take any, like I said, fast acting insulin in the morning, even like because I know I might go low during my lift. So I try to like make sure I prepared for that. There's actually this really great brand. I'm not sponsored by them, but it's called UCAN Energy Gels, and they have a super starch. It's like a slow release carbohydrate. Man, has that been so helpful, because I'm like getting carbs, but it's not like my blood sugars aren't going up and crazy with them. I'm like, it's like a slow and steady like rise. Like it's duration for my workout. I don't know, they're great. So
Out of interest, do you know how many grams of carbohydrate are in that, or how many carbohydrate
15.
portions? 15. Okay.
Yeah,
It's not a huge dose, but it's nice and slow and long acting.
yeah, and I'm like, sometimes I would be timid to take carbohydrates because I'm like, I don't want to like ruin my blood sugars now in this workout. But yeah, just the super starch like is it's they're like live steady, like they have it's like they've like, I don't know, not prototyped it, but yeah, it's kind of like helped me through the workouts, that I have carbohydrates and I have energy, and then my blood sugars are still good. So it's been interesting to they also have like where you can use in a drink bottle. When I go on a road ride, my blood sugars like to go low because I'm just constantly moving. So I like have one bottle with that, and it's been really helpful.
Okay.
So I'm always learning. So that's something that helped me through Pan Am Games, because I was like, I'm so hungry, but that was great.
I feel like it's a never ending learning curve though. Just when you've got it nailed,
Yeah.
life will change, routines will change, training patterns will change. Like you're talking about changing how your training program's kind of now changing, and you're in that transition phase. It's kind of like suddenly everything changes again. So it's constantly, and even weather or seasons throughout the year. I think there's kind of big swings and big changes that you kind of need to keep an eye on as well.
Yeah, exactly. Physically, mentally, everything.
You mentioned that there are some days that you're kind of being so active that your insulin sensitivity kind of adjusted means that you're not having to take any fast acting. Out of interest, just in terms of the diet around that, how much in a typical kind of day, do you know roughly how many kind of grams of carbohydrate? Are you on a particularly high carb diet? Are you on a particularly low carb diet? What kind of does your diet look like?
Um, I'd say I don't know specifically, right? As athletes, like sometimes people would know exactly how many carbohydrates, but I think that's more of like the fitness influencers. I don't not many like athletes actually really track.
No,
That's
I was just intrigued to
no,
go,
I know, but
are you
it's
adopting
always
a more keto diet, or are you adopting, a normal kind of routine diet, or do you particularly focus on high carb?
so pretty normal actually. Like I don't do like high carb, but I would say like moderate. But I think what I've learned too is in the order of what you eat your food. So I don't know if you guys know Glucose Goddess, but
I was just about to mention her name. So
yeah, so it's been really helpful. Like I eat vegetables or vegetables first, and then I eat protein and then carbs last. Like it's sometimes really aggravating because I'm like, oh, I want to eat the French fries or I want to eat the rice. Like, but I've learned like in the order of what I eat my food has really helped too. And just like I see it in my blood sugars. There's a time that I actually like I ran out of insulin. I was out to dinner and it was like sushi, and I was like, okay, well, I gotta eat the salad and I gotta like have a little piece of chicken first, and then I can have the rice with sushi. And it actually was not as bad. And I went for a walk after, but I was like, oh, thank God I knew the little tricks.
I think she'd be proud of you there if you squeezed in the walk afterwards as well. For anyone who is going, what on earth are they talking about? Definitely go and check out Glucose Goddess.
Pretty cool.
And
Yeah.
and it's not type 1 specific, so it's just looking at kind of the glycemic impact of food and how you can kind of curve those spikes to kind of flatten your glucose trends.
Like I
And
never eat fruit on an empty stomach. Although, people are like, "Oh, that's so healthy." It's like, "Nope, I will not do that." And like I'll always make sure to have a meal and then if I want to have fruit, but never like on an empty stomach and never have sweets on an empty stomach. So, I definitely had sweets on an empty stomach in Copenhagen where I got this like waffle thing and an ice cream and it was like I was not doing too good for like 3 hours. So I was like, oh, I did that to myself. But
everyone's allowed a day off or a
yeah,
few hours off.
yeah. But my like eating nutrition is pretty balanced. Like I make sure to like I like avocado, egg toast for breakfast. Like sourdough is actually really good. So just like whatever you like to eat, just enjoy it.
Yeah, and I do think that's a balance. And there was a podcast right at the beginning of the year actually from one of our members, Wendy, who kind of talked about the way that we think about food and making sure that we actually enjoy the food that we're eating. And I did a counter to that, which is kind of talking about the nutrition side of food and thinking about food as a fuel and how we use it to kind of fuel our bodies, particularly in sports. But I do think there's a balance there of kind of going in sports and thinking about diabetes, then yes, you might need to think about it, but actually you still got to enjoy what you eat in daily life. Otherwise, training will become boring if you're not supporting that with the stuff you enjoy.
That's exactly it. Yeah, yeah. And just eating right after my workout is like a big thing. Protein shake and then having a meal when I get home. So, and there's a question from Richard.
Yeah, I've actually got two questions. Firstly, were you a good sprinter runner when you were younger?
Uh,
And secondly, do you think you'll ever go back to track cycling? Sorry, to road cycling. So I know
yeah,
you did it when you were younger, sort of at 15 years.
those are good questions. And thanks for being here. Yeah, I was more of the miler. I did the 800 a bit. I didn't really get the opportunity to do anything shorter. Um, let's just say it like this. I grew up in Florida and there were other athletes, other ethnicities that were just faster. And I was just like, I was the girl that did the mile and the 800. And that's all I knew. And but I love like the culture and being in high school and like having that opportunity, like to be part of that. But I wish I did get to actually sprint because I did do the U23 was it the 23andMe the DNA test and
Oh,
it
yeah.
did say that I have a power profile athlete, so I'm like, dang, I wish I knew that when I was younger.
Oh, that's really interesting that I mean, you could have potentially cut out some years
I
of
could have.
development.
Yeah, I could have. I feel sometimes I like could have been maybe, I don't know, different, but who knows?
Yeah.
I can't look back at it now.
No,
Just
absolutely.
time flies.
What's been has gone, and you never know what the impact would have been that if you just started at a younger age on the track or things like that, then maybe you wouldn't have enjoyed it so much, and that natural
Exactly.
progression.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It just happened the way it's supposed to. And as far as road cycling, I love it. I don't go up hills very well. I go down them. So I don't think I will ever be like a tour rider. But but maybe like crits, because like there's like just it's fun, and there's like a lot of like in the USA crits, like there's a lot of like teams, and they travel, and there's a lot of money in the crits too. And I just think maybe it'd be something fun. And they're only an hour. So I'm like, I think I can manage that. And if I can make it to the end to sprint.
Just thinking kind of longer term, kind of where your career takes you, do you think that you'll always be involved in kind of cycling, track cycling? And do you envisage, in 20, 30 years time that you'll have a career in kind of training and coaching and that side of things as well? Is that an aspiration?
Um, it's hard to say because like I'm in it right now and I've been involved in that time. Like if I retire at 35, so if I'm looking at going to LA 2028, why not? Because it's here. It's the Olympic Games in the US, so it's another 4 years. With the program, growing, it's like I would love to be a part of that. And then I'm right now pursuing my master's in business right now too, so online with Penn State. And so I don't know what can come of that. I mean, you're always networking. I have good connections with my undergrad from Penn State. And so I'm not really sure. Maybe something in the realm of like healthcare that I want to do, like maybe work at a hospital. Like I have great sponsorship right now with a hospital, but I'd like to like work in the diabetes and like healthcare side of things. I'm not going to be a doctor, but it'd be great to like be a part of like that leadership aspect of it. So
Well, if you ever find yourself in the UK, let us know, because there's a few people on the call and a few people that are around that kind of are involved in healthcare and diabetes wider than that. So
yeah,
if you ever find yourself on the right side of the pond over here,
yeah,
but
that'd be great. Yeah, I think the networking part of it is fun, right? And you never know who you'll meet. So I'd like to give back in some way, but and I feel like I'm doing that with diabetes in the sport now, but yeah, it's not sure to what capacity that will be. But yeah, for now, this is a small window that I have left, and so that focus is there.
I've written down on my paper here LA 2028 as a little reminder to myself. So I'm going to be looking out for that and keeping an eye on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any more questions before we move on to one good, one better? No, right. Okay. In that case, every week on this call, we tend to wrap up with something called one good, one better, we where we kind of give one thing that we have done good this week in the previous week, kind of reflect on the previous week. This is another one of those moments where I'm throwing you under the bus here, Mandy.
No, I do this with my sports psychologist. She's like, "What are 3 great things that happened this week?" And I'm like,
But you can pick one of those. But it's
that's
it's
great.
one thing that you've done good in the week prior to today, and then one thing that you're particularly focusing on for the week to come. So yeah, one good, one better. I can start to buy you a bit of time if you want.
Okay, you can start.
Okay. So my one good, I almost feel like I should do my one better first, but I know that Wendy's going to kick me. So my one good this week is actually just timing range. The timing range this week's been really good. I'm really happy with it. And I think that that has been as a result of just kind of looking at all of my numbers, looking at my my kind of insulin to carb ratios, my insulin sensitivity factors, and just really giving a lot more attention and focus and making a few really, really small tweaks to my diabetes management, but that have kind of all added up to making a big impact. So my one good is looking at the numbers. My one better is skipping breakfast. Wendy's been sending me messages every morning reminding me, but I've been really busy in work and breakfast has fallen to the bottom of the card. So I've been skipping breakfasts and replacing breakfast with coffees, which is was not great this week.
Yeah, the breakfast is the best meal I think of the day. It starts it off, but I like that, and I'm gonna maybe hold you accountable and to let me know how that went next week.
Will do. Yeah, I will. I'll take 7 photos of my next 7 days breakfast and send you them in a week's time and go look. Here we go.
Photos, I like
Yeah,
that. That's
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, those were really great actually. I wasn't even thinking about mine when you were talking, which is probably good, right? Because I'm not thinking about what I'm gonna say. Um, so just with being back in my training routine, like that shift of like those doubles are here again, and so just making sure I'm just going to bed like at a decent time. Like I try to shoot for like 10 o'clock, and because I'm waking up about 6:30. So, and that's like Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So just being consistent in that is like what I feel like I've been doing this week. And I guess like I just want to continue to do that because I got this 4 week block basically, and then after Christmas I have like a little bit of off time, but technically I'm traveling back to LA then. So I don't know if that's really off, but yeah, just being back in the routine.
Following through with that routine, keeping it.
Yeah, and just kind of training on my own right now. My husband's working, so he's like gone all day, but I find it really motivating. He comes home at like 5 and then goes in the gym. We have our little gym set up here and next door in our guest room that's converted. We have a squat rack in there and a watt bike. But yeah, he's there training from like when he gets home until like 8 o'clock.
Any time on Zwift, or does Zwift feature in your training?
Um, I did a little bit just to kind of get over like the hour, 2 hour rides that I occasionally had.
Yeah.
But on Saturday I'm gonna try to get outside. It's supposed to be 52 degrees, which I don't know
I was
what
gonna
that
say,
is in Celsius, but so
I'm trying to quickly convert that on my computer. 52 degrees Fahrenheit is 11 degrees Celsius. So that's pretty. I mean, it's not warm.
yeah, the sun won't be out, but I'm like, I gotta get outside because it's been like almost 1 degree, I think, here, like -3 this morning.
Wow. Well,
Yeah, I know it's too cold for this time of year. It's usually like this in February, but it's okay. I'll be out in LA in 4 weeks.
you'll be all right. You'll have nice weather, nice warm weather.
Yeah, no, this has been great, and I appreciate everybody for coming. And and feel free to connect with me on social media.
Great stuff. Right. Well, everyone else, please stick your Wonga Bun betters in the WhatsApp group, and we will hold you accountable next week. But Mandy, thank you very much for your time. Genuinely appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate everything that you're kind of doing for type 1 diabetes, kind of wider than just this call as well. So thank you very much, and yeah, wish you all the best over the rest of this kind of 4 week training block and over the winter.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We'll stay in touch, and I'm expecting those breakfast photos.
I'm going to do it. I will.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see what your English breakfast looks like.
That's going to be awful, but yeah, a lot of porridge. It's usually porridge, so you'll get a lot of porridge photos.
Yeah, maybe a little avocado. I like avocado toast. That's so basic, but it's good. Awesome. Well,
great stuff.
have a
Thank
good
you.
night, everybody.
Thanks, Mandy. Cheers.
Cheers. That's right. Cheers.
It's a very British thing. Cheers, guys.